All right. Hello, everybody.
Hey y'all.
Welcome to another episode of the Yoked Podcast, where we're talking about real stories and real conversations about dating and marriage,
Yes.
building covenant relationships through love and laughter.
Yes, there's so much laughter.
Yes,
Oh
sometimes a
my
little
gosh.
much, but I think it's warranted all the time.
Oh, you ever laugh so long that you're just tired?
Yes,
It just
yes,
oh
that has happened before.
yeah. Yeah, I think I'm having like an after effects of laughing charge. So don't mind my coffee. This is
Yes,
necessary.
we
It's
are.
very
We are
necessary.
both actually drinking coffee right now. I am your host, Jermaine.
I'm KC.
I didn't forget my name. It just took a minute to get it out. But um, yeah, so we're your host. Thank you for coming on, being with us today.
Yeah.
Um, hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
Yes. Stretchy pants are in full effect. Yeah.
Hopefully, you got plenty leftovers. If not, just call somebody. I'm sure they got some.
Did I ever tell you about that time I went to this? And this is going to be a hack for you ladies if you don't believe in spandex or you don't want to go buy like stretch pants. This is a hack for you. Did I ever tell you about that time that I went to the maternity store and I bought the pants extenders because I had gotten too fat for my clothes and I refused to buy larger sizes. So it's like a piece of like elastic that hooks onto your where your button is on your pants and just stretch your pants out for you.
I like a seatbelt extender.
Yes. Yes, that's
Wow,
exactly what it's like.
wow.
Works perfectly.
But why would you need that? Couldn't you just like unbutton the top?
No, because then your pants will fall off. This like at least hold it together over your new girth. So, yeah.
Okay, is that what it's called? Girth.
Yes, girth.
Okay,
Yes. You
okay,
get girth.
okay. So,
Width is when you go out. Girth is when you go around.
okay,
Girth is what happens after Thanksgiving.
okay. So like a girth accommodator.
Yes. That's what we're going to call them, girth accommodators. There's a life hack for you. Use it. Maternity store, they sell them three in a pack. There you go.
All right. Do they sell some for men too,
I mean, I'm sure
or do
guys
we
could use
just
them, but probably not.
oh, just buy big pants?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's gray sweatpants season for y'all anyway, so
Yes. Well, I don't have gray sweatpants.
I'm gonna get you some.
I have blue sweatpants.
No, I'm getting you some gray ones.
Okay. Merry Christmas to me, right?
Merry Christmas to me.
Okay. All right. Almost not safe for work, but no, but it's okay. No one's at work probably right now anyway. So is that it? Oh,
Yes.
so yes, I did make a full recovery from the last week's one chip challenge. I believe I told you. So when I described the experience to y'all last week, I was literally like maybe 30 minutes just finishing the worst of it. And so what they didn't well, so what they didn't really tell me or us or anybody, I didn't see this anywhere, was that okay, let me just describe it to you from beginning to almost end. So um when I put the chip in my mouth, it was hot in my mouth. You saw that. Y'all saw that on all the videos. It's all over the internet right now.
Uh huh.
And it was hot in my mouth for like 10 or 15 minutes. So I waited the 5 minutes before I devoured the ice cream. So I guess I won the challenge.
You waited like 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, so I ate the ice cream and it helped. Um, but see, what I didn't know was after it finishes being hot in your mouth, it hurts in your body. No joke. It literally hurts. So it hurts in your stomach, it hurts in your small intestine, and it hurts in your large intestine. I did not know the course my food traveled until I did that challenge. Because now I know how food kind of travels through my body because I felt it, all of it, and it hurt a lot. So, serious warning, just don't do it. Okay? Unless you're
Uh
no, like
uh.
don't do it
Don't do
unless
it.
you're just crazy, or just really want to experience that level of pain. Don't do it. Um, and if you still decide you're going to do it, I would suggest you not do it alone. Make sure someone else is there with you.
Make sure
Because
they have dialed 911 in the phone because it gets bad. It gets very bad.
make sure they are willing to help you and they're not grossed out by stuff that's going to come out of your body or or noises that you're going to make.
Okay, so this is sacrificial marriage. There was like there was a little bit of crying. There was sweating
Well,
profusely.
yes, a lot of
I
sweating.
don't think you didn't like cry, but like you were in so much pain that it was like laying on the floor covered in cold towels, ice packs, and I was spoon feeding you ice cream because you could not move your body.
Right.
Like it was hilarious, and then it was scary. Like I was really
Yeah,
worried
like
for
it now that it's over, I'm glad it's over. But when it was over, it wasn't really over yet
no.
because it had to actually come out of my orifices. I had never ever before this time experienced peeing fire. But I peed fire, and that's literally what it felt like. It was just a stream of smoke and vapors coming out of my urethra, and I was confused. I'm like, what? And she heard me. She heard me in the bathroom. She's like, what? I'm like, I feel like I'm peeing fire. I thought it was done, but apparently it was not done with me. So, and I'm being so, of course, and the next morning, I had to release it out of the other orifice, and that was just as fiery. Um, Talk about a two-headed dragon. That was out of both ends. It
I
was
was
coming.
asleep. I was like, you know what? I told you not to eat that chip. I
True.
told him a year ago, don't eat that chip. But he was bound and determined. So when we
Yes.
talked about last week, sometimes you have to let men make mistakes and learn from them.
Well, yes, that's how we learn through experience.
This
A
psychopath
lot of
ate the
times.
chip. This psychopath lived with the consequences. I'm just glad you didn't die because I was very
I
concerned.
mean, yeah, I'm cool with not dying.
Yeah. So anyway, this this is
Yes.
this is probably the first honest, like, this is what happened to me when I ate this chip, because you only ever see,
Yeah, I
and
never.
like we talked about on last week's episode, people, you see people going into situations, but you don't always get to see the aftermath and the after effects of the decisions that they've made. Like, you don't get to see the consequences of their actions,
Right.
and no one has ever talked about this
Yeah. So,
ever.
um, word to the wise, just don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's really not worth it. They're not going to pay you any money.
Mm-mm.
So,
Mm-mm.
so yeah, just wanted to update y'all on that. I'm glad it's over. Won't be doing it again. There are very few reasons as to why I would think that I would ever endure that again. So,
Today's episode, we are talking about when you need to build a wall around your marriage. So, we're talking about boundaries.
right.
And
People love to hear about boundaries, but they don't like setting them and keeping them.
I think I want to get the man's perspective on this, because typically from the woman's perspective, the boundary that we fight with establishing is with your mother and with your friends, especially female friends. Like, these are the kind of boundaries that we fight against all the time. And I will say that I'm very, very blessed. I did not have to worry about establishing, that whole he's your son, but he's my husband first kind of thing with your mom.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, on the other hand, that was a completely different story. And I don't know if a lot of women have to establish these boundaries with their moms. But for us, because when we got married, I was 33. So it was later in life. And my mom, and I think I had just, when we got married, I had lived with my mom until I was 30. And then, like, 30, 31. And then I moved out, and I was only out of her house for a year, I think, before we. No, we met when I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
So we were
A little
friends
bit
for a
before, a
year.
little bit before you turned 30. Yeah.
Yeah, and then a little more than friends for a year. And then we were dating for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with all of that happening, my mom was still like, because I'm the only girl and the oldest child, but still the only girl. So she was very
Mm-hmm.
much like, well, you're my daughter and I've raised you all this time, and he can't come in and step in and blah 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 blah. And I was like, pump the brakes, boo. Like, I love you. I'm still gonna come visit. You can come over here. But the issue that we had with my mom, she had a key to my house. So I have like this neurosis about like being like dying in the house and nobody finds me. Like, I'm just so weird. And every time I tell people this, they're like, "What is wrong with you?" But maybe it's because I watch too much IDTV. I don't know.
Probably.
But
Well, who knows?
but
Probably.
I had always had this fear of like dying in my house and nobody. But no, they just had. I just saw last week where there was a service member in Texas who had died, and his body was in the house for 3 years before they found him. So it's not like this has never happened before.
But it's not like you isolate your people that much that no one tries to contact them
But I
for
mean,
three
that's
years.
true. But I'm just saying it happens. So anyway, so my mom had a key to my house. So after we got married,
Maybe he did the one chip challenge.
too soon.
Yeah, probably.
Too soon.
Yeah.
After we got married, my mom had a habit of just coming over. Like, she would just literally just pop up. And I was like, Ma, you gonna mess around and walk in on something that you can't unsee. Like, you can't just walk into my house like that.
Yeah, we're not stopping.
Nah. Talking about somebody pulling up in the driveway and like, just go ahead and finish. We'll just answer the door in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, too much information.
Yeah.
But she used to just kind of, show up and walk in the house. And I was like, you can't do that, because I'm married now. Like, that's not cool at all. And so it got so bad that I had to take my key from her because I didn't trust her to respect that boundary that you can't just walk in here.
Mm-hmm.
And she even tried to use the thing of, well, you have a key to my house and you can walk in whenever you want. That's different. You my mom. I can do that.
And we're not going to.
Right. That as well, because I'm like, I'm gonna call.
Mm-hmm.
But so we had that. I had to take the key away from her, and then there was another incident not long after that where she was trying to convince me to get a new car. And I was like, well, I don't really need a new car. And she's like, well, you need to get it. It's a great deal, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, I need to talk to my husband about this. And she kind of got indignant with me about why you got to talk to him. No, baby. I know you my mama. I know you pushed me out, but I'm out now. I'm going to need you to let that go. So, we really had to, especially with my mom, really had to establish the boundaries of, I get that I'm your daughter, I'm your first child, and you love me, but God has put someone in my life who now has the responsibility and the role to be my head, be my protector, and to look out for me. And, it's not saying that I push my mom away. It's just, I have to draw a line and say, I love you, I appreciate you, but this is not your place anymore. And, even to this day, when I get sick, she'll be like, you want me to come take care of you? No, my husband got it. It's cool. I love you and I appreciate you. Bring me some food. But, because, I'm still a mama's girl. I still like to go over there and eat. But, having to be respectful of our marriage and establishing those boundaries and saying, hey, you can't do this because you are, being disrespectful to my husband and being disrespectful to our household. So, having to really kind of put our foot down or put my foot down and say, hey, we can't allow this to keep happening.
Yeah, I think from a man's perspective, what we, while it seems like it's more relational or external to our household in terms of setting boundaries, for men, it's more internal or inside of the household,
Mm-hmm.
where we're trying to, set boundaries and trying to make sure that people who are not supposed to be in here are not in here,
Mm-hmm.
or things that occur are not occurring in the home. So it's more behavioral,
Mm-hmm.
and relational within the house.
Mm-hmm.
So behavioral, I have to manage my own behavior and make sure I'm not doing anything that's unhealthy or destructive towards the marriage, such as well, a big one is kind of like viewing pornography,
Mm-hmm.
or bringing in outside things or people or objects into the marital bed or relationship, and then making sure that I feel like I am being respected.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm loved,
Mm-hmm.
but making sure that my being, my way of thinking, my mind, making sure I feel respected. I think I said this on a few episodes back where, I would ask men, if they feel loved, and they say yes. My husband, I mean my wife and my kids, they love me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would ask them if they feel respected, if they feel like their wife respects them, and they would pause,
Mm-hmm.
and they would say, I don't know. So I think part of establishing boundaries from a male's perspective is making sure that one, I'm managing my behavior, and two, making sure that I don't feel disrespected
Mm-hmm.
by what's happening or the dynamics of the household.
Gotcha. So the other thing, and we definitely, this was like the one point of contention for us, really, like when we were dating and considering marriage, was establishing boundaries with friendships.
Yep.
So, being completely transparent, I'm still friends with an ex boyfriend who I thought that I was going to marry. And we dated off and on for 3 years. But
And I didn't find out till recently that you weren't actually engaged. Like I really thought you two were engaged.
yeah, no, we weren't. I just thought that, after 3 years that, we were going to be married, but that just, didn't happen.
Yeah.
But even with still having that friendship, we have boundaries there. And he's friends with this particular ex.
And I
And
didn't know this person before me and her got together.
no,
She actually introduced us at his sister's wedding.
yeah. So it was like, and even in that situation, it was like, okay, I'm friends with this guy. This is who he is or was in my life. I'm still friends with him, and this is why. Come meet him. If you're if you're not unsettled by this friendship, then okay. If it bothers you, then okay, we'll proceed forward either way. But they're not best friends, but they're cordial. They've spoken to each other. I think when his wife had kids, you found out before I did. Like you told me about the kids being born. I was like, oh, I
Well, I
didn't know.
mean, I saw it on Facebook. So
Yeah,
it's
but
like,
I mean,
hey.
I didn't. So situations like that. But even with all of that, we still have the boundaries of if this friendship is going to be in place, what are the boundaries that we are willing to accept? And even to this day, like there's nothing inappropriate that happens, but if I speak to him, I'm like, hey, I talked to him today, and this is kind of what we talked about, just as an accountability thing, because I don't ever want it to be where oh, you've been talking to him behind my back. No, 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 we're not gonna do that. Again, boundaries. And the big thing that we fought about was your female friend. And a big part of it was I felt like I was never ever comfortable with that friendship, but I felt like because you allowed me to maintain a friendship with my ex, that I had to let you be friends with her. And I was never
Yeah.
ever comfortable with that. And that's what we fought about,
Yeah.
like for years.
And the dynamic of our that friendship was much different from yours. Like
Mm-hmm.
we didn't talk as much. We didn't know each other as well. And so the communication was infrequent as far as talking on the phone or texting,
Mm-hmm.
but the connection through social media was still there,
Mm-hmm.
and it remained for quite some time. But now it no longer exists. So, like all communication or all chances for communication are cut off because we're not connected in any way anymore. So it just as the I don't want to call it a relationship because it's not a romantic relationship, but as the relationship progressed, we naturally grew apart. I didn't fight to keep it, nor did I say you need to get out of my life and force her out
Mm-hmm.
um, prematurely. I just kind of let it. I knew that's where it was going anyway, so I just naturally let it go there.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but that was a thing where I was certainly trying to force you to end it instead of, letting it naturally progress. But, there's other stuff behind that. But,
Maybe a car conversation.
um, but, I think with us as wives, especially if we're having trouble with like in laws and friendships and stuff, we try to take the position to force relationships to go the way that we want them to go
Yeah.
when it's not our responsibility to do that. Like, the stuff that was going on with my mom, that wasn't your place to talk to my mom about that.
Yeah, but I think it's natural to want to do that because you're
Yeah.
trying to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to be made a fool out of. So you're like, well, in order to so that doesn't happen, let me just go ahead and say this is what needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen, well, that means this person doesn't love me or doesn't respect me. They're not hearing me, and
Yeah.
that may not necessarily be what it means, but that's how it's interpreted.
Yeah. So, as our resident therapist, why do
That's me, y'all.
yeah, it's not me. I'm the resident coach. But why do, and I mean, I guess, you not disclosing anything about your clients, but when you have clients that are dealing with boundary issues, like what do you want them to know about having boundaries?
Well, people think boundaries hurt other people,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's not the primary intent. Although it could happen, um, depending on how you set it up. Boundaries are not meant to hurt other people. They're actually meant to protect you or me as the individual.
Mm-hmm.
They're meant to protect me. They're meant to protect my well-being. They're meant to protect my mental health, my mental state,
Mm-hmm.
and they're meant to protect my emotional state. So that's the primary purpose of a boundary. It should be to protect me. Um, and it sounds selfish, but it's really not. Um, it's like it's like eating or reading or anything else, exercising, anything else that you
Mm-hmm.
would do to build up your own capacity. So eating in and of itself is not a selfish act. Reading or doing some sort of research is not a selfish act. You're reading or consuming this information or nourishment for the benefit of your body. That's what a boundary is.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times when we read scripture, we take it, sometimes we are very liberal with interpretations of scripture. Sometimes we're very, just matter of fact, face value with it. But,
Mm, yeah.
and I mean, it's, depending on the circumstance, I think you need to kind of like fluctuate between the two. And what I mean when I say that is that Proverbs 24:3 talks about guard your heart. And a lot of times I think we talk about guarding your heart as dealing with just romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And your heart is the center of your being, and it is attacked by toxic family members, toxic friendships,
Yep.
toxic work environments, gossiping people. Like there are all sorts of things, and outside forces that can attack your heart. And when they attack your heart, it can cause isolation, depression, anxiety, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read the scripture that says guard your heart, it's not talking about just be careful who you're dating.
Right.
You have to be willing to put up boundaries in every area of your life in order to guard your heart.
Yep. So, healthy boundaries they don't disrespect other people. Um, they don't simply like restrict other people or other things,
Mm-hmm.
but they provide a recourse. So they're not meant to simply stop someone from expressing that they love you, but they're meant to say, "Hey, this is not the way I want to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I want to be loved." That's a true healthy boundary. Or if you walk up to someone you don't particularly know and you reach out to hug them and they're not a hugger.
Yeah.
They may say, "Oh," and reach out a hand to shake your hand. So in that interaction, what they're doing is they are protecting their own safety and security by saying, "Hey, I don't want to hug," but they are respecting your desire to want to greet. And so they reach out, they give you another option, a handshake. Hey, I don't hug on the first interaction, but I do shake hands. Hopefully this is acceptable. Nice to meet you. My name is
Yeah.
so and so.
And I mean, as you know, me, anybody that knows me, I'm a hugger. Like I hug everybody. If you smile at me, I'm gonna hug you. If you don't smile, I'm like, oh, you need a hug, you know. And even I've had to learn to respect that boundary because you know there's trauma in my history where I don't particularly care for certain people to touch me, and you know if it's a stranger I'm getting a bad vibe, like I don't want you to hug me. If it's somebody I know and I'm getting a bad vibe, I don't want you to hug me. So I've had to learn that you know people have their own reasons for putting that boundary up and not to get offended if somebody doesn't want me to hug them. You know, and as I've gotten older now, I'll kind of be like, are you a hugger? And they say yes. Oh, well, you're getting a bear hug. Like
Yeah.
that's you know that's how I express love to strangers. Like agape love to strangers is through hugging them. But you know I've had to understand that their boundaries are not meant to hurt me. And like you just said, it's to protect themselves, and I have to respect that.
Yeah. And I was gonna say something else. Um, Gosh. Anyway, if I remember it, I'll come back to it. If I remember it, I'll come back to it.
So, sorry, I probably totally distracted you there, but
It's okay. I'm back.
so so you know like we were talking about the you know kind of liberal translation of Proverbs 24:3, guarding your heart. You have to understand that building boundaries to protect yourself and protect your marriage are multifaceted. So when you go to work, you need to build boundaries about you know who you interact with, how you're interacting with these people. Are you you know bringing your work home every day and bringing that toxicity into your home?
Yep.
You know you're much better about leaving work at work than I am.
Oh yeah, I have to because if I don't, I will definitely be crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
I have to
yeah,
because I have to switch gears quick a lot of times.
yeah.
Like I literally have sometimes 30 minutes to go from data analyst type person thinking logical um, to more artistic counseling type person and like that. And
Yeah.
I gotta be on when I get there.
Yeah. There's no warm up period. Like there's you know it's like yeah we're gonna get 10 minutes and we're just gonna cut your session short. No, we're not doing that. And then you know from your family and your friends, if you have people who are encroaching on your marriage, especially doing it negatively, then you have to establish that boundary. And I think that's hard for a lot of people when they have like you know a best friend that they've had for 40 years
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden you have to put somebody else first and they're like you know you've heard it, ladies, you've probably heard, I was her friend first. Yeah.
Yeah,
You feel like
yeah,
you were touched by that.
yeah. Because I've heard it, and this is what I was gonna say earlier. This is where boundaries people can feel like you're hurting them by putting up your boundary, when in reality you're not hurt. You don't intend to hurt them, but the nature, the dynamic of the relationship is changed a little bit. But for some cases, and that friend that's been there before the new spouse, that hurts a lot
Yeah.
because you know we've been friends for 20 years or so, and then this new person comes along. You've been with them for 4 years, and all of a sudden they're married, and it's like, oh well, now this person's first. Wait, what?
Girl,
I was here
I
when you
was
were.
I was there before you and I'm gonna be there after you.
See,
See?
yeah, no, 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 no,
Boundary.
yeah,
Boundary.
yes. You don't. Not saying you don't need that kind of person in your life, but you don't need them in the position that they think they're in.
Message. Oh, I've been wanting to say that forever. Oh my gosh. So, you know, and as you grow and mature, relationships are supposed to change
They are.
for the better.
They should.
If they're changing for the worse,
Or they're
then
staying exactly the same.
right,
Meaning the
then
stuff we do when we're 45, the same stuff that we were doing when we were 20.
yeah, no, no, shouldn't be doing that.
Nope.
So especially we kind of talked about the job, but like even doing community work and church, being involved in church, establishing boundaries. Like we're also right now on a series of rest in Sunday school
Yep.
and talking about how you have to establish those boundaries to say, okay, I've got these roles and responsibilities in my life. I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing what I need to be doing. And if I'm too involved at church or if I'm too involved in the community, I'm neglecting my marriage and my home. And that's a boundary that if you don't put that up, other things can come in and eventually replace you.
Yep.
And I've seen that. I actually had know someone who ended up getting divorced because they were too
Yep.
involved
Yep.
in community activities, and because of that the spouse felt neglected and went outside of the marriage.
Yep.
So I've seen that. I know someone that happened to, and it was
That
all because they
happens.
didn't put up the boundary of making sure that home was taken care of.
Yep. So while we have all these different things, family, friends, job, community, church, the biggest part of that is you just got to watch yourself
Yeah.
and what you do and don't do. Like I said earlier, with these cell phones that we got, kind of in our hands, we can have a whole separate life in the palm of our hands, and we can just it can be like, well, nobody sees me, nobody's watching, especially when it comes to or pornography or things or illicit images that you look at online. I mean, it's right there in the palm of your hand, and most of it is free. Like, you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
All you got to do is know how to type what you're looking for into a search engine, and you can get it.
Or dating apps where you're just like, oh, I'm lonely, I
Yeah.
need a friend, let me
an
just
app.
hop on here and see who's around me.
Yeah, there's an app for that.
Yeah, literally.
There's an app.
Literally.
There's an app to satiate any vice you might have, and it's right. You don't have to go to these places anymore. You don't have to go to Bourbon Street, New Orleans. You can go straight on your phone and go go into your closet or bedroom or whatever, and have your way with yourself, and end up causing damage in your marriage. Seriously,
Yeah,
like, have
I
your
just
way.
I just wasn't expecting you to put it that way, but you are absolutely correct. And I just wasn't ready. Let me take another sip of coffee.
And of course, all of that, um, that's the different forms that the enemy can take form.
Yeah.
Those are the different forms that the enemy can appear in. It's not this. I've never seen a red devil horny person.
No.
Horned individual, not horny person. Horned individual. But the devil does show up in different packages, and he never looks the way we think he's gonna look.
And I mean, and I think that's the caveat, and that's kind of how the enemy works, is because we're fed this physical image of what he should look like, and we don't see that he shows up in a toxic friendship. We don't see that he shows up in a temptation. We don't see that he's showing up in our anger and jealousy. Like, we don't, he doesn't. And I tell folks all the time, and I've had, constantly have to remind myself that the enemy works through other people. He works through those relationships that are closest to us. So while we're looking for the red-skinned person with horns, he's actually in the person next to us that's in our ear saying, girl, you don't need to be with him. Why are you dealing with that? Like, I wouldn't do that if I was you. That's the enemy. That's the boundary that we need to recognize, or the time that we need to recognize. We need to put up that boundary and say, you're not speaking life into me. You're not speaking life into my marriage. I need you to go over there.
Yeah.
Recognizing how and when the enemy shows up and being able to put that wall up real quick and get him out the way.
Yep.
So, this book, I'm sure you've heard of like the Boundary series, but this is one that we've gotten. It's called Boundaries in Marriage. It's also by Doctors Cloud and Townsend. But if you're interested in it, this is what it looks like. So they've written, boundaries, like the generic boundaries. I think boundaries in parenting, boundaries in marriage. Just there's a whole series on these. But the tagline on this is understanding the choices that make or break loving relationships. And what they, one of the things that they talk about in this book, like the big kind of underlying theme is what you value is what you'll have,
Mm-hmm.
which means what you value in your life is what you're going to fight for
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that you protect.
Yeah.
So learning how to learning to identify what is most important to you, and in marriage it should be your covenant. First your covenant with God, and then your covenant with your spouse, saying that I have promised God that I'm going to honor this vow that
Mm-hmm.
I've made. And then making sure that this is what you're fighting for. You're fighting for your, salvation with God. You're fighting for your covenant with your spouse, and putting the boundaries up that will allow you to do that successfully. So, what typically, what types of conflict do you see with couples who are dealing with boundary issues?
Typically, I see there's some with some couples who have been married a short period of time. It's the um, immaturity or brokenness that generally has not been addressed,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows up in the marriage, or hurt feelings that are hurt feelings that are no one's fault.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't an intentional I'm doing this to hurt you. It was just something that was done unknowingly to the guilty party,
Mm-hmm.
and the other person's just mad and brooding about it, but not actually speaking it.
Okay.
And then conflicting desires. So, you know, I want kids. I don't want kids. So conflicting desires. Neither one of them is wrong, but when you're married, that can cause a huge um,
Mm-hmm.
divide, because you know you got both desires are wholesome, both desires are good, and
Yeah.
both desires are righteous in and of themselves. But when you have two people who have to do the same thing, somebody in that situation is not going to get their way.
Right. And I think, to interject quickly, I'll make my point. When you That's a conversation you should have before you get married,
Should.
and decide, either way, can if the desires are conflicting, can the other person live with, can I live with you getting your way? Can you live with me getting my way? You know,
Yeah.
and if you are dead set against having kids, I should not enter this marriage expecting that I'm going to change your mind,
Right.
because
And so,
that's another way to be unequally yoked, and it's a
mhm,
conflict that's never going to be resolved.
that's what happens. Either you don't talk about it, or you end up talking about it before making a decision,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get married, and then on the other side of marriage, sometime down the line, it crops up again, and one person's like, "But we talked about this,"
Right.
and the other person's like, "Well, I changed my mind," or "I really wasn't completely honest," or something.
Yeah.
So that's generally what I see crop up. There are other conflicts, types of buckets that conflict fall in, that crop up sometimes, whereas the sin of one spouse, where someone does something that's against the marriage, and that's bad, of course. Desires versus needs. So someone has a strong desire that they think is a need, but it's really a desire. It's not like it's like having cable. Well, I need cable. Well, no, you don't. You desire cable. So being on opposite ends of that, and then the known versus the unknown problems, meaning, and it kind of almost goes in line with the hurt feelings that's no one's fault, but really the known versus unknown problems are problems that people don't really know it's a problem.
Mm.
Like I didn't know that not separating the clothes into 9 different piles was a problem, but apparently it was. So
So you're just gonna bring that up?
until you told me it was a problem,
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a problem.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's a problem. Let's talk about it.
All the ladies are watching. Don't you know how pink socks are made? This is exactly how pink socks are made.
I've never worn a pink sock a day in my life unless it came out of the store pink. So, but it's okay. It's all right. So generally, those are the. I think I listed 6 or 7 different types of
Yeah.
conflict.
Yeah.
Let me run them down again real quick. Immaturity, brokenness, hurt feelings, no one's fault, conflicting desires, sin of one spouse, desires versus needs, and known versus unknown problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you know of any other categories that need to be in there, let us know.
Yes. Hit us up and let us know. Like, you didn't talk about this, and this is what we are talking about. Well, this is what we fighting about. Because I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things. So if you are having a problem establishing boundaries in your marriage, what do you suggest? What do you want the people to know in order to kind of resolve that?
Well, again, it starts with you. Me. It starts with self. You have to understand what it is that's making. Um, so let me back up. The one thing, the first thing I always tell people is your spouse is not the problem. The problem is the problem. Your spouse is your spouse. You shouldn't be fighting your spouse. You should be fighting the problem.
Okay, so let me do a hypothetical.
Okay.
So
Still hypocritical.
okay, ooh, can I get in character? I'm getting character.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so my husband is cheating on me, and you telling me that he's not the problem? How you gonna tell me he's not the problem? Sorry, y'all. I'm from Memphis. It comes out. My bad. How you gonna tell me he's not the problem when he's the one cheating? What is the problem? If it's not him, what is the problem?
So, this is where I tell people to disassociate the issue from their spouse. The problem is the cheating. And you need to team up with your spouse to understand how you need to stop or fight the cheating. I know that's counterintuitive, and I know that puts you in a position of having to take responsibility. But that's the point. When your spouse is being unfaithful, there is some responsibility on your part. I know it's not what you want to hear, and I know it's not what you think, ever. It's never my fault that my spouse decided to go outside the marriage. But speaking from clinical experience and personal experience, within a marriage, it's difficult, but you also have to turn that mirror back on you and say, what am I doing or not doing to what could I possibly do or not be doing to contribute to the problem, not to my spouse's problem.
So, would you be comfortable enough to kind of like disclose? And I know this is a bit of a tangent, but I think because infidelity is such a big issue, and usually we hear from the perspective of the woman being cheated on by the man. So, as a man who was cheated on by his wife, what what did you see when you turned the mirror back on yourself to say, this is the responsibility that I have to take for her stepping outside of the marriage?
Yeah, and it took some time for me to get here. So by the time I was in a position to turn the mirror on myself, we were like all but separated physically. Like we were. It was pretty. It was not short. It was not soon. It was not too long after that where we separated physically as well. But one of the big things was I wasn't really a thorough communicator, and I only communicated out of necessity. Like like the extra conversation. I was not that type of guy. I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was very so yeah, I was kind of I don't want to say mute, not emotionally mute, but I just was not about just all this extra talking. I was very regimented in my thinking, and so I wasn't really talking. So she rarely ever knew how I felt about things or what I was thinking. But so I was really a terrible communicator. And because of that, I wasn't meeting her emotional needs. Like I just was. I don't know that I left her completely emotional abandoned. She might describe it that way, but maybe I did. For the sake of argument, let's just say I did. So I had to learn about communicating. I had to learn about being there for someone, emotionally. I had to learn how to not be so regimented in my thinking. So I had to develop this alter ego called Mr. Spontaneous, and so that's just what I had to do. I had to start being
Yeah.
spontaneous. Had to be more alive, more in the moment, and so there's a lot of things I wasn't doing. I was a very, I guess maybe a dry personality is what you want to call it, but yeah, I just and that stemmed from a lot of just things I hadn't dealt with before I was married. So I
Yeah.
mean, again, as much as I want to say my wife, my ex wife hurt me, or she stepped out on the marriage, a lot of once I got over myself
Yeah.
and stopped trying to blame her and stopped trying to put all of this stuff on her, I was a part of the marriage too. I got married too. So what did I do? And it took a minute, but I eventually, if I wanted to improve, if I wanted to grow, if I wanted to not be bitter and hold a grudge, I had to like forgive her and like start looking at me.
Right. So that, ties back into the whole making your spouse and your marriage a priority and forsaking all others and, denying self, like kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and saying, I know that this is the way that I am, but my spouse needs me to be this way. I need to, I guess, tear down this boundary
Mm-hmm.
and be the person that they need within this covenant marriage. And making sure that you talk to them about what what you need, what they need, and what boundaries need to be in place and what things need to not be in place.
Mm-hmm.
So, even now, as involved as you are in the community and with work and counseling and all the things that you do, it doesn't bother me. But if it ever gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I have not seen you in 7 days, I'm gonna need you to, come home and spend some time with me.
Yeah.
Being able to accept what your spouse needs from you and putting up that wall to say, okay, I know I want to, be out in the community and doing this particular activity, but I need to put my marriage first
Yeah.
and spend quality time with my spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any other clinical, practical advice about boundaries?
You definitely need to deny yourself when it comes to those internal boundaries to manage your behavior. If you need to go as far as putting up electronic blocks on your house to not get you to stop you from looking at certain things on the internet, and I keep coming back to it because I know you're probably like, man, that's like the third or fourth time you said that, because it's a huge thing. A
Yeah.
lot of marriages are destroyed because one party, specifically the male, is looking at images that arouse him, but actually destroy the wife.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, I would encourage you to stop, because here's what's going to happen: you're going to end up with a handful of porn and no wife. You're going to end up with porn in the one hand and yourself in the other hand and alone. And that is a sad story,
Yeah.
and one that happens all too often.
Yeah.
If you really, and so I want to also make distinguish the difference. There's a difference between a porn addiction and a porn dependence, or terrible personal management skills.
Mm.
I
I
think we
like personal management
I
skills.
think we use that word addiction to try to pretty up ugliness and
Mm-hmm.
sin. We if we call it an addiction now in the world of clinical addiction, if I call it an addiction, that means it's a disease, and it's not my fault. It's not something I can really control or
Mm-hmm.
help, or it's something that's ingrained in me.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain hallmarks of addiction that make something addiction versus you just don't have you're not exercising self control.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of addiction is preoccupation. How often are you spending time thinking about doing this thing? Another part of it is um, the inability to stop in the face of negative consequences. Now that is one thing that people have an issue with, the inability to stop even in the face of negative consequences. And there's other items, but the other part is you just don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And when we call it addiction, it makes it, it kind of softens it or pretties it up into something that's not our fault. No, just part of it is you really need to search your own brokenness.
Yeah.
And understand why it is you feel a need to do that when you're married and you don't really, what is it this porn is doing for you? What are these images doing for you that God can't do for you? Answer that question for yourself. Really, what is looking at this video going to do for you that your relationship with God can't? And therein lies the opportunity for growth.
Okay.
So that's what I have to say.
And you said a word.
Okay. So, anything else we want to talk about this? Right. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that it's a lot with establishing boundaries has to be um, a self examination of your priorities and what's important to you. And if you understand that, you can move forward with establishing whatever boundary it is that needs to be established. And I know that, there are, no relationship is the same. Like, there are certain things that happen within a marriage that it's like, okay, I need to put up a boundary on this. And, even if, we're talking about the porn thing, if this is a problem, we need to put a boundary up, get some counseling, figure out what the underlying issue is, install software and
Yes.
devices that block this stuff from coming into your home. you know Putting those boundaries up to say this is not acceptable because it is detrimental to our covenant. um, when it comes to physical, mental, and emotional abuse, putting the boundaries up and saying that I'm not going to, as my protector and covenant keeper, I cannot allow you to treat me this way because you are now in violation of the covenant. We're putting boundaries up that, we don't say these certain words, we don't engage in these certain behaviors. And it might not be something that, I can do. Like, it might take a counselor to come in and say, if you are working on this part of your marriage, if your spouse feels like you're being, verbally, emotionally, mentally abusive, these are the things you will not say and will not do if you are wanting to move forward to again protect that covenant.
Mm-hmm.
But understanding where boundaries need to be and taking the steps moving forward to establish those boundaries, be it outside family, friends, inner turmoil, your job, whatever it is, recognizing where you are falling short and putting up the boundaries and guarding your heart in all things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I want to say about that.
All right. Good.
So, well, thank you so much for watching and listening to us. Make sure that you like this episode, like the podcast, share it with your people, rate us, tell somebody about it. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. We talk about the things.
Yep. And now on Facebook. I'm sorry. YouTube.
Yes,
We're
on
you're on
YouTube.
YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and look for us on Facebook, TV, watch, whatever.
One of those things.
Yes. One of those things. All right, y'all. See y'all next week.
Bye.